The Commerce Department today, showing the biggest drops in sales between March and last month were closures, electronics stores, furniture stores, and restaurants. One bright spot, online, 0.4% last month. Stocks closed modestly higher at week's end. The Dow was up 60 points today. The Nasdaq gained 70 points. The S&P 500 closed up 11 points. You're listening to NPR.
Support for NPR comes from the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, committed to bridging science and the arts to develop a common language so that they can better understand and speak to one another. More information is at sloan.org. And the listeners who support NPR station.
From 89.3 KPCC, this is Martinez. It's Friday. We made it. Coming up a little later in the show, we're going to hear some pro tips on navigating Griffith Park.
So if you call one, you need help, or you're trying to tell them where you are, if you see something with a number on it, tell them that number and they'll know exactly where you are.
That's coming up in just a few minutes. And by the way, if you haven't seen already, the LA Rams came out with their new uniforms this week. A few weeks ago, the LA Chargers came out with theirs. If you go to my Twitter page at amartinezla, you can vote on who has the best uniforms. I know there's a lot of fashionistas out there, so just vote at amartinezla. All right, we're going to start off this Friday with our weekly peek at politics in the Golden State. And this week, cuts, and sadly more cuts as the state tries to fill a $54 billion budget. We'll hear at how lawmakers are responding. Meanwhile, California's fiscal future may hinge on Nancy Pelosi's HEROES Act. So why is it facing steep Congress? Those stories plus a Republican victory in LA's 25th district. We're going to get into all of that with Marisa Lagos, political correspondent for KQED. Welcome, Marisa.
Hey.
Also with us, Zach Corser. He co-directs the Policy Lab at Claremont McKenna College. Welcome to you, Zach.
Great to be here,
All right, Marisa, let's start with you. The revised budget is not nearly as rosy as the January budget. As I mentioned, deficit north of $54 billion, cuts being made to education, healthcare, parks, recreation. It all on Governor Newsom's Medi-Cal expansion. What were the most striking features of this new budget proposal in your view?
You know, I think that this is going to sound weird, but in some ways it's not as bad as we thought in this sense. It's bad, okay? But, you know, we were hearing this $54 billion number, and it wasn't like what that was going to mean for this year and next year, or whether that was spread over many years. So comparatively, the $19 billion shortfall there, quite as bad. And I think that the fact that, two things. One is that Newsom is clearly trying as much as he can to cushion the blow to schools. They were $18 or $19 billion in cuts alone, and he has moved around some money, so that's closer to $10 billion. That's still going to be incredibly painful at a time which we're already struggling. The other thing is, I think there are some lessons we're already seeing sort of having been learned from the last downturn. Newsom isn't proposing cuts to Medi-Cal or welfare payments, things like that. I think that this budget is attempting, and don't know if it will be able to do this, but to balance what we know, which is that individuals are hurting, and they're trying to sort of make these cuts as soft as possible, because the budget is directly related to the economy. And one of the reasons that we're in this mess right now is that all these income taxes, all these things are going down so quickly because of this drop off in employment. So I think Newsom's trying to sort of do both things at the same time, and it's a hard juggle.
Yeah, there's pretty much no economy, so I can get sales tax out of no economy.
Right.
And it looks like Governor Newsom is trying not to be penny wise, pound foolish, but it also seems like he's a big can down the road when it comes to pensions. Zach, what did he do, and does it just add to maybe the uncertainty around pension liabilities in the state?
Well, we all know what a big problem unfunded liabilities for pensions are in California, both for local governments and for the state. And this move reflects a change in economic realities. Before COVID, Newsom was planning to put $2.3 billion extra into as a payment towards unfunded liabilities to state pensions, but he's having to change to redirect that money towards local school districts and community colleges to help them deal with their own payments to retirees. But here's the big question: CalPERS going to do during this whole pandemic? Are they going to be able to weather the storm? We'll remember back to 2008, and a big drop in CalPERS and more optimistic assumptions really led to these unfunded mandates. CalPERS, we have to watch how well markets will come back. But we could be seeing a huge hole in CalPERS, as we are dealing with all these other problems. So, saving $2.3 billion now, I don't know if it's in the long run, but it's just more of the complexities of dealing with the pandemic.
And Marisa, we touched on this yesterday with Zach, but the proposed 10% pay cut for state workers could put Newsom on a course with unions. How have unions responded?
Oh, they don't like it. but who's going to say that they like it? I mean, This is not, and also I think the fact that he's asking for a pay cut instead of saying we're going to have to do deep layoffs in itself is indicative of how he's trying to approach this. I think to Zach's point, are trying to trade off the sort of short-term pain with the longer-term pain. And I think one of the real big question marks here is what the future looks like, and none of us know because this pandemic suddenly. And I think there is some hope that it could end suddenly too if we do get therapies or vaccines, right? And so this is different. It is a different calculation. I can see the argument for deferring some of these payments, but they're deferring the payments to let the school districts make their own pension payments, right? Because that is what is strict, is that both the state and the districts have to pay into these pension funds. And so I do think that it's not probably in a perfect world it's Newsom looking at what's happening on the ground. And again, I think we always have to, when we talk about schools too, mention that not only were they already facing these deficits, asked to rethink how we educate kids, right? This is a time when we could probably double our teaching staff and not have enough people. So it's tough. And I think that it's not surprising that they're looking at pensions as one way to kind of paper this over.
And Marisa, I keep saying Governor Newsom's budget. I should add the word proposal because it's a budget proposal, needs final approval from the year. You spoke with Republican Assemblyman Kevin Kiley for your podcast Political Breakdown yesterday. What's his take and his perspective, representative of how other Republicans might?
So I found this really interesting. Kiley and other Republicans are still, the first thing out of their mouths is believe that they're not repealing AB 5, which was that law around forcing independent contractors to come on staff at places like Uber and Lyft and a bunch of, thousands of other companies. I kind of pushed him on that because they did put $20 million for enforcement on that. To him, he thinks that's indicative of the sort of problems in Sacramento. He says it represents the fact that, people like Newsom in his mind are not kind of in tune with what people on the ground need. I've also heard a lot of eliminate high-speed rail from Republicans. Neither of those obviously would eliminate this budget deficit. So I think that they feel, like the state need to think its priorities broadly. But as you know, they have, Democrats have a super duper majority and we have a Democratic governor. So where the rubber meets the road is going to be with those Democrats.
Yeah, more than likely. Now, Zach, during his speech yesterday, Governor Newsom threw his support behind Nancy Pelosi's $3 billion HEROES Act. Under the act, states and local government, $1 trillion in federal funds. Now, doing a quick compare and contrast, how much might life in California look with that federal help?
Well, it's an interesting strategy, first off, in the sense that essentially Newsom's proposal sets up this idea of triggering cuts. That is to say, if it doesn't get passed, there will be a trigger of cutting K-12 and higher ed. There'll be a trigger for Medi-Cal cuts. There'll be a trigger for the salary cut to parks. Some major cuts. And it's a political gambit to put more pressure on Washington to pass this HEROES Act and get that political pressure out of California. But, Nancy Pelosi's caucus, I don't know that it's really solid on this one. There was a procedural vote earlier today where 14 Democrats voted against the decision to whether or not to actually vote on the HEROES Act. Ro Khanna voted against it. Abigail Spanberger, who's on the other side, she's very moderate, she voted against it too. So it's a weird political gambit, and I think there's a lot riding on it in the sense that I don't know if it's going to pass. There's a lot of uncertainty with them, particularly with the GOP. But if it doesn't happen, I think we're going to see some really, we're going to feel the pain. We're going to see some potential bankruptcies with cities, to see deep cuts to services. People will feel the effects on schools, on the social safety net, on health care. We're all going to feel the impact. So, there's a real need here. California's got to get seriously consider, what's plan B here?
Now, do you think it's not going to get out of the House, or because it's not going to get out of the Senate? I don't.
Well, I think it's going to get out of the House, but like I said, there's enough. They're not unified. That is to say, Pelosi can't afford to lose a vote on this. She's got to show unity, got to show that her caucus is together on this one, because the real challenge will come in the Senate, where this could just end up being a dead letter. You know, Pelosi did not reach out to the Senate. Republicans have been using this as an opportunity to attack Democratic state budgets, saying that they're too big, picking and choosing about what state governments should be spending on. It's really descended into kind of a partisan food fight. And so if her caucus isn't allied on this going into that battle, I think it just sort of weakens the effort overall.
Talking to Zach Corser, co-director at Claremont McKenna College, and Marisa Lagos, political correspondent at KQED. When it comes to the HEROES Act, Marisa, what are the key components to this act? And what is Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and the
Well, I mean, the centerpiece is this idea of giving nearly $1 trillion to state and local governments. But there's other things in here, including this idea of expanding, some of the unemployment benefits. There's money in there for the post office, which Trump has just outright. It is sort of like any $3 trillion bill, I guess, a Christmas tree of sorts. I think it is a negotiated Pelosi. I mean, she knows that she holds the lever to one branch or one half of one branch of government, right? And that she needs Republicans. I think it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, California is not alone in this, right? This is not a California pandemic. This is a global pandemic. And so if you look at states, Kentucky, for example, they will likely be facing similar situations to California. And so I do think that there will be some pressure from red state governors on people like McConnell to do something, probably not as wide as what Pelosi wants. And I do think it's fascinating that on the one hand, you have people like the Progressive Caucus saying this doesn't go far enough. We need to do more to put, money into hands of people who work for businesses that could be that they don't get laid off and they're not on unemployment. You have people sort of more in the center of the Democratic Party arguing that they need to essentially expand a lot of these benefits, like the sixth supplement to unemployment that just ends in July, at the end of July. What people who oppose that say is like that based on nothing. There's not going to be July 31st and August 1st. So I think Zach's right. I think that there are a lot of challenges for Pelosi. I think she wanted to stake out her position publicly on what needed to be in this. And, now the real fun begins.
Would pressure from red state governors, Marisa, though, work on Mitch McConnell? It seems like he's got Teflon when it comes to pressure sometimes. I don't think times.
But he doesn't have Teflon when it comes to his caucus. And if they feel like their members are at risk because they're not getting giving the support at home that people want and need, I do think that could change the dynamic. I mean, look, like we saw that happen very quickly with the first couple stimulus acts to COVID-19. First, nothing was going to happen. And then a week later, they were passing these huge packages. So never say never. I mean, the other interesting point, we have an election in November. And if Democrats are successful in taking back the White House and Senate, which is a big if, things could look really different. And I think that's one of why Newsom wrote the budget the way he did, with those automatic clawbacks of the cuts if they get federal money, because that could happen at any point in the next fiscal year.
Post office in California for that election.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that's the irony there.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah. Zach, so ultimately, is the Republicans' reluctance to even look based on policy, politics, or a mix of both?
Oh, it's a mix. As I said earlier, Mitch McConnell's basically said he doesn't want to, quote, blue state bailout. He's trying to make it sound like if there's an interest in bailing out, or I shouldn't say bailing out, just helping with relief for state and local governments, that somehow this is a blue state problem. Let's see how far he can push that as a theory, however, because I do think, across the board, there is a problem throughout the nation, whether you're red or blue, in terms of the impact on state and local budgets. There may be a little playing around here in terms of, trying to make the case, like Republicans are starting to make here in California, that there are types of spending that they don't want to help with. This can't be just an automatic block grant to the states, that it's going to come with strings attached, so it will reflect Republican policy preferences. That may be a gambit that they try to put control over things. But, the question is who has control, who has leverage, and it's a tough battle. There's maybe not the kind of pressure that we felt for the first package that came out, but there's an old saying in Washington. It used to be a joke, and now it's getting kind of serious. You used to say a billion here, a billion there. Pretty soon you're talking real money. It's a trillion here, a trillion there. And I think, Republicans are also starting to take some deep breaths about the debt. I think there's people in the caucus in the Senate that are starting to wonder about how much debt America can take on. And they're also starting to ask questions about should we be taking debt on for the kinds of relief that are being requested. So there's a lot of uncertainties here. There's certainly still a lot of continuing pressure, but politics is definitely going to play a role in what this final bill looks like if we actually getting a final bill.
I was quickly trying to look up what's after a trillion. I couldn't quite find it.
Quintillion?
Yeah, I guess that's next, right? Marisa, one more thing today. The district, Congressional District 25, that's the seat that was occupied by Katie Hill before she resigned last year. That seat flipped back to red. Republican Mike Garcia wanted to lose this seat so quickly.
Well, it's a special election, and it's a very purple district. It's one that Hillary points, but Newsom won by just a couple. They're going to be rematched in November. I'm not ready to draw any long-term conclusions about the health of either party based on this one in a very challenging sort of environment. But we do know that historically, special elections favor conservatives. They're more likely to have people used to voting by mail. And I think in November, when you have Trump on the ballot and a lot of other questions before.
The podcast Political Breakdown on KQED. Marisa, Zach, thanks a lot.
Have a great weekend,
Have a good weekend.
Pandemic occupying pretty much all of our mental and emotional bandwidth the last few months. You'd be forgiven if you didn't know that we are creeping up on prime fire season. Yeah, prime fire season. Cue up the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse already. Coming up, we're going to hear what Southern California has in store as the weather heats up. That's next when Take Two continues in about 60 seconds. Stay with us.
Hi, it's Nick Roman. Coronavirus pushed retail spending off a cliff. Shopping centers are now eager. Can the American mall recover from COVID-19? That's on the next All Things Considered. Weekdays at 4 on 89.3 KPCC. Roman, I host All Things Considered on KPCC every day. Every day I work in my home studio and I wear a tie and I wear a nice vest just to help me to sound the way I want to sound on air during this time. It makes me feel good to feel like I'm sharp, and that helps me sound sharp on the air. So I try, and I have a lot of really nice ties, too.
89.3 KPCC, rising to the challenge. Rise with us.
Supporters include Dignity Health, Cedars-Sinai, Kaiser Permanente, Keck Medicine of USC, Providence, and UCLA Health. All committed to making LA better together. Be on pause, but your health isn't. Get care at bettertogether.health.
Back now with more Take Two on 89.3 KPCC app. I'm A. Martinez. It's hot enough and dry enough outside that it's fair to say wildfire season is just about here. KPCC science reporter Jacob Margolis joins us to talk about the fire year ahead and how the coronavirus is complicating things. Hello, Jacob.
Hey.
All right, so for the coming months.
As of right now, Southern California is actually the only place, or one of the only places in the U.S. that has below normal wild chill, at least for the next few months. And that's because even though we had a really dry January, very, 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 very dry February, we did get a bunch of late season rain in April. And what that means is that all of the medium-sized brush and the big brush we see up in our mountains, they're still sucking up a lot of moisture from the ground, and moisture is the name of the game, no matter how much you hate the word.
No, absolutely. Now, I assume that's because wet things don't burn as easily.
That's science. Yeah.
And I believe in it. And I believe in it.
That's why people are starting to see grass fires all over the place. So when we have a really hot day, like one grass dries out really quickly and you throw a windy day in there, if a fire starts, it'll burn through grassland really fast. That happened last week, Hollister Ranch. But as long as that bigger brush holds on to that moisture, we shouldn't see any absolutely devastating fires yet. Here in Southern California, it is a different story up in Northern California, which missed a lot of the water that we got.
So when might that change for us here in Southern California?
Dry out by late August, September, around there, depending on how hot the summer is, how much late rain we got. And then the Santa Anas come along and they dry sometime like October time of the year. Yeah. And those really push the fires along. And that's why we burn so much in the fall. Though last year, because of that late, in part because of that, our fire season last year was actually mild compared to average.
Talking to KPCC science reporter Jacob Margolis. Now, earlier on the show today, we talked about when he's facing a $54 billion budget shortfall. Now, in his revised budget yesterday, Governor Newsom announced a whole lot of cuts. How did fire prevention fare?
Newsom made it clear that fire suppression is a major consideration. He didn't cut funding for it. In fact, the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, which coordinates disaster response across the state, saw a $127 million infusion. CAL FIRE, which is the state's firefighting agency, saw an additional $85 million or so to hire 600 people. That was in part to make up for the inmate crews that aren't going to be available because a lot of them were actually let out early. There are also equipment like 26 Wildland firefighting trucks, these giant metal boxes that go into the worst of it. They're pretty impressive. And they're also getting 12 Black Hawk helicopters fly at night and carry more water than the Hueys that they have right now. And they also got some money for wildfire prediction infrastructure. One cut was to a $100 million grant program that was intended to give homeowners money to harden their homes, especially in that wildland urban interface, where people live, protect their homes against wildfires, so people won't be getting that money.
Now, all that equipment you just mentioned has to be held and run and operated by human beings, firefighters, people. Yep. And people are susceptible to coronavirus. So one of the biggest questions is how is our firefighters' ability to fight these wildfires going to be compromised possibly?
Yeah, fires are still figuring that out, but they're taking precautions with PPE, quarantining people who get sick. But one of the interesting things is what will happen with evacuations when fires do come to these. And that's this year, people may be asked to leave sooner than in previous years to make things a little bit less hectic. So that's something good to keep in mind if you are deciding orders, which you shouldn't. Officials are also considering evacuating people to hotel rooms to keep them sequestered instead of gymnasiums. But if they have to use gymnasiums or whatever, they'll separate people who are sick from those who aren't. And they've also considered putting up partitions and possibly using air purifiers. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a situation.
That's KPCC science reporter Jacob Margolis. Jacob, thanks a lot.
Thanks, A.
All right, now to your stories. KPCC and LAist are documenting life in the new normal with video diaries from everyday Angelenos. Here's a good one if you need some inspiration to get outdoors.
Hi, my name is Maura Hudson. I'm from Long Beach, California. Today is April 29th, Wednesday, and I'm walking in Hartwell Park. I walk 8 miles a day, Friday, on behalf of the Bixby Knolls Dawn Joggers. I'm also walking and running in preparation for the Boston Marathon, which was supposed to happen a few weeks ago, but due to the coronavirus, was postponed until September. I'm very excited and hopeful everything works out for September, but in the meantime, I'm walking, I'm running, I'm having a good time with the squirrels, and I encourage everyone to get out there and do their thing. Thank you.
Watch all of Maura Hudson's video and submit your own diary at laist.com, AIST.com. All All right, there's an old saying, you don't know what you got until it's gone. Well, until the coronavirus pandemic shut down LA's parks and trails, we probably did take all of them for granted, especially Griffith Park. But now a new book will rekindle your appreciation.
LA has a city park that literally has mountains in it. And I think a lot of people really underestimate that when they think about Griffith Park.
The new book, Discovering Griffith Park's Guide, is coming up next when Take Two continues. Stay with us.
It was wonderful. And we're like, okay, wow, this is really going to work. This is our baby, and we're going to grow it, and we're going to be able to pay up the loan, and we're going to be able to just blow this thing out of the park. And then the pandemic.
I'm Michael Barbaro. That's Today on the Daily from the New York Times.
Now on weekdays at 3:30 on 89.3 KPCC.
We're KPCC, and we're making sure you can get our trusted, fact-based news at the dog park, in the backyard, in the home office, on any device the kids aren't using.
Mom, you're using up all the bandwidth.
And even in the car. So you can stream us at kpcc.org, listen on the KPCC app, tell your smart speaker to play KPCC, or even tune into us on the radio at 89.3 FM. And however, thanks for listening.
KPCC and NPR are rising to the challenge in these unprecedented times, bringing you accurate, in-depth news that keeps your community connected. As a member, you're an essential part of keeping this service on the air. Here's another way you can help. Get your gift matched by your employer. Many employers missions, and it's easy to do. Double your impact on the vital reporting that keeps you informed during this important time. Get your gift matched at kpcc/match.
Scene. I can give you what you want, but you got to go home. I forgot some good old love, and then I got some in store. When I get through throwing it on you, you got to come back. Boys and things will come by the dozen. That ain't nothing but drugstore loving. Pretty little thing, let me light your count, cause mama, I'm sure now yes around.
Back now with more Take Two on 89.3 KPCC and the KPCC app. I'm E. Martinez. For me, is one of the most special places in the whole wide world. From running with my uncle up Crystal Springs Drive when I was a kid to playing my high school and college baseball home game. My first date with my wife was at Travel Town because it was cheap. And then my granddaughter's first hike was with me up to Amir's Garden. I've been exploring Griffith Park for over 40 years now, and it still feels like there's a lot of moderate, challenging, and very challenging. So give us an example of each and what goes into their level of...
For an easy one, again, this is not technically part of Griffith Park, but I include it anyway because people sort of assume that it is part of Griffith Park. But the path around the Hubble is one of my favorite, very, very easy paths to send people to. It's pretty flat. It's mostly paved, stroller friendly. It's about 3 miles round trip loop, what I think are the best Hollywood sign views in the entire park. In terms of moderate stuff, sites like the observatory trails, which are basically from Griffith Park, is a fantastic world-class park. LA needs more parks, and it needs more parks in more places. 40% of Angelenos don't live within a 10-minute walk of a neighborhood park. And that was a big issue when it closed and we were being told, go walk around your neighborhood, stay local. A lot of people in LA couldn't do that. Yeah. So now that we have our parks open again, I'm hoping that people really appreciate couldn't access and appreciate what we now can access. And I'm hoping that they'll fight for more parks in the future, and they'll make sure that parks like Griffith stay around for the next 100 years.
Casey's beautiful new book is called Discovering Griffith Park, A Local's Guide. Casey, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, I'll admit I did not think I'd miss sports as much as I have. I've been filling the hole in my sports soul by watching highlights of old games, then forwarding them to Larry Mantle. It's really all the sports we have right now, unless it makes up a game out of thin air, like tomorrow's Galaxy versus LAFC soccer match. Yeah, that's really going to happen. Find out how when Take Two continues. Stay with us.
Most of China is not locked down anymore. The government says it wants people to travel and to spend, but it's not that simple.
I'm willing to accept the capriciousness of some of the policies, mainly because I believe they're not being made for somebody's pocket. I think for the best interest of the country.
I'm Kai Rizdal. What traveling in China right now feels like. Next time on Marketplace. Weekdays at 3 on 89 KPCC.
James Ainsworth felt socially distant before this pandemic. He uses a wheelchair. Group activities can be tough. With so many options online, that's changed.
I was able to meet new people and feel like I was a part of the group in a way that I had.
His story and the latest news Saturday and Weekend Edition from NPR News. Saturday mornings till 10 on 89.3 KPC.
Listen, oh baby, when the band is playing and that solid beat, I'll make you wanna move and make you wanna pat your feet. Don't fight it, baby, feel it. Ha. Oh baby, when you're dancing near me with your time and you begin to feel a funny thrill moving up your spine. Don't fight it, baby, feel it. Oh yeah.
Here at the bank on a beautiful evening in downtown Los Angeles, 72 degrees, and as we get ready for kickoff of what should be a perfect night to play football here at the bank.
It is going to happen. Well, in the mind of Dave Denholm, the play voice of LAFC. And since it's technically not real, for tomorrow, El Tráfico will be called Faux Tráfico. Dave, welcome back to Take Two.
Thank you, pleasure.
Dave, we've known each other for a long time, over 20 years in sports radio. And a few days ago when you tweeted this, the other day my wife asked you 90 minutes of soccer play-by-play without an actual game going on, just make it all up. I think I'm getting close to trying it. When I read that tweet, I thought, yeah, whatever, Dave. And then I heard together, and the sports-starved fan in me freaked out. So first off, how did this idea hatch?
Well, it hatched actually, as said, my wife asked me that question one night when we were chatting, and it was kind of just at the start of the lockdown. And so we were just talking about my job, that sports weren't going to be around for a little while at least. So she asked me, do you think you could do it without a sport going on, any play-by-play or do play-by-play? And I said, no, I can. And we just kind of forgot about it. And then I just started thinking about it a little bit more, and it stuck with me as an idea. So I called my producer and talked with him. He usually has good advice for me, and he said, yeah, try it. And that got me more fired up about it, So probably a few weeks later, I took my time. I might be able to do this. And a couple of weeks later, I did give it a shot. And as it turned out, it worked out.
See, both of our wives have more confidence in our abilities than we do, right? I mean, it just seems like it. Now, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the early days of radio play-by-play sports. That's when a broadcaster in a studio would recreate a game off of wire reports or sometimes by being on the phone with someone who was at the game. How much of that kind of performance theater did you tap into this?
A little, as I'm well aware of those situations too, as we are both big radio fans and we know that history. But what I wanted to do was I decided that I'd have a roadmap for this game. I did not schedule anything out. I did not write anything out. I just was going to let the ball take it went in my imagination. And I honestly, the only thing I did think of beforehand, was I did not want it to be 0-0, 90-minute game. So I knew there would be a goal or two or maybe even more. I don't want to give away too much. But that was the only thing in my mind. This will not end a tie at 0-0. So once that happened and the ball kicked off in my head and I heard that first whistle in my mind, the wire reports. Fascinating that those gentlemen did that over the years, nearly 80, 90 now. And this was something that I did kind of research and draw back on, but I wanted to make sure I did not have any information in front of me that would lead me where I was going to go. I had no script for this.
Wow. So let's dive into your imagination for a second, Dave, and let's get a taste of some in-game LAFC versus Galaxy action.
12 yards off the sideline, so it's a good angle for the in-swinging left foot of Carlos Vela. 13th minute, no score. LAFC, LA Galaxy at the bank. As the two teams, you can obviously, it's all about the rivalry, certainly. The two fan bases do not like each other. There's about 100 who have made the trip wearing the LA Galaxy colors here in the stadium at Bank of California Stadium, but you cannot hear them over the 3250s. Over it with Atuesta waiting there. It's going to be Veda's left foot. Here it comes. Sends players in motion with his left hand. Sends it in with the left foot towards the back post. Knocked out. Hey, Segura tries the shot and just absolutely shanks it. Eddie shaking his head as he's running back there from 17, just inside of the area.
Dave Denholm, the radio play-by-play voice of LAFC. I mean, I got goosebumps, Dave. Goosebumps, because it feels like a live sporting event that's happening right now. That is absolutely amazing. The crowd noise was timed perfectly as well. It's, how long did this all take to put together? Because you mentioned Mario Ruiz, he's the audio producer. How long did you two have to go to put this together to sound like a real game?
We did a lot of prep work in that I was ready for a regular game, a regular call. So I had all my stats, my sheets all written out.
You treated this like a prep for a real announcement.
I went through my pregame rituals at home when I was doing it to get ready. I was nervous.
You're a method actor, man. You're a method actor.
I took a minute halftime break the way I normally would, and then went right back to it. But Mario, I'm glad you brought this up. Mario had such difficult work, and he did a great job. But he had hours and hours and hours of matching up my call with what he thought the audio would be within Bank of California Stadium. And he's day one as well with this new team at the bank. So he had all the audio. He had the 32-52 chanting and screaming. He had all the goals and what the fans and how they react. And he did a great job. I guess the kids call them Easter eggs. There's some special little surprises for people in there audibly throughout the match that Mario made sure was as accurate as he possibly could. So it took me hours before the game in terms of prep and really wrapping my mind around how I might be able to do this and making sure all my notes were correct. And then, of course, the 90 minutes plus halftime, basically 2-hour broadcast. And it took Mario several days to really put the finishing touches on it that just take it to a new level.
Now, this is going to be technically an LAFC broad. Can't imagine, Dave Denholm, that LAFC will lose this game.
I do not want to give any spoilers away. There are plenty of surprises for everybody. I think and I hope Galaxy fans might even be able to enjoy this.
Oh, all right, we'll see. That's Dave Denholm, radio play-by-play voice of LAFC, and you can actually listen to Faux Tropico tomorrow at noon on ESPN LA, and we're going to go out on another call game. Dave, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Katai manages to hold it up. Stolen away there by Palacios. Good job by Diego Palacios to dig in with that left foot. Palacios down the line to Rodriguez. Rodriguez now. He has a chance to settle in front of Felcher. Rodriguez cutting it back towards the middle with the right foot. Rodriguez around Felcher. Edge of the area. Rodriguez shot. Stay on the far side and he tips it wide. Oh, what an effort there. The first shot on goal. That one by Brian Rodriguez in the 17th minute. And it nearly made it 1-0. It'll be a corner kick.
Wow, so cool.
LAFC.
All right, finally, we have plans for your weekend if you need to let loose or even get out.
CC's Leo Duran and A. Martinez with some relaxation on what can stay closed and what can open. There are a few things to do in Southern California that can get you outside while still practicing physical distancing.
All right, and the first one involves never leaving the comfort of your car.
Yeah, a drive-through. Now, not just any drive-through. This one is in the Grove, like literally in the Grove streets.
Ooh.
The roads will open for the first time in its history tomorrow to host a special drive. It's by the Miramar To Go food truck, and all the meals sold will help out the nonprofit Para Los Niños. And it's going to be a really unique experience since, of course, the Grove is only for pedestrians. That starts tomorrow at noon, and prices vary depending on what you order.
I've always wanted to cruise through the Grove. I've driven past it. Now I'm going to get to go. For people craving nature, there's a chance to get outside.
Yeah, because starting tomorrow in La Cañada Flint Ridge, Descanso Gardens will be reopening. Now, there are new rules here. Everyone must wear a face covering. Non-members can only buy tickets online in advance, and those tickets are limited to maintain physical distancing. If you weekend, the Gardens will release new blocks of tickets on Tuesdays at 10 in the morning. And when you go, those admission fees start at $5.
Finally, this is online and not outdoors, but it does help support our wild animals who are
Yeah, tonight at the LA Zoo, it's hosting a big fundraiser for Indies Day. It's called the Virtual Beastly Ball, hosted by Joel McHale, star of Community, which, by the way, I have been rewatching, and it mostly holds up. This live event auction, conservation stories, plus extra special guests like Lance Bass and Lisa Ling. However you take part, the funds will go to helping the zoo with its animal conservation efforts, but it is free to stream into your own home via Facebook and YouTube. Now, there are still a bunch of events to go to, whether online or driving around. To find out more, head to our site, laist.com. That's LAIST.com. Plus, you can follow me on Twitter at Leo Has a Cat.
All right, that's KPCC's Leo Duran. Leo, thanks a lot.
Thanks, A.
All right, finally today, the pandemic has forced universities across the country to either cancel or postpone their in-person graduation ceremonies. But that's not stopping them from celebrating the class of 2020 online. And today, it's graduation day for USC. University of Southern California held a virtual ceremony today to celebrate its more than 19 students receiving degrees. USC President Carol Folt started things off with some words of encouragement for the grads.
You're probably asking, even with this education from USC, will I make it? You will. And you won't just survive, you'll thrive. Your ability to connect and get things done, even during a pandemic, is truly extraordinary.
The celebration featured appearances from past commencements, including journalist Lisa Ling, author Deepak Chopra, and actor Rainn Wilson. Comedian Will Ferrell even dropped in and did his best Oprah impression.
Every is getting a new car. Every graduate is getting round trip tickets for him and her and their family to the Bahamas or Tahiti whenever it's okay to travel again.
He doesn't even sound anywhere near her. All right, and they actually got a hold of that. Now, to mark the occasion, USC graduates to their feelings of graduating during a global crisis.
Even though, I'm not there with my classmates or my professors and everyone was here, I feel like I was able to celebrate it with my family and in the comfort of my own home.
Melody Weintal is a first-generation transfer student, graduated with a BA in journalism from the Annenberg School, and for now, she plans to continue her journalism pursuits as a freelancer. Roy Pineda earned his architecture degree today.
You know, not many people can claim that they graduated during a global pandemic. And looking at the positive side of this, this is a really historical sort of be living through and graduating during this time. So this is definitely one for the books. And I just feel happy and super grateful that, I accomplished this milestone and I'm here with my family.
Pineda said he's looking forward to entering the job market and seeing how the architecture world will respond to this moment in time. Now, to all the young Trojans who ducked today, fight on. And just to share the spotlight a little, in just a few minutes, UCLA law students will attend their graduation online as well. So a healthy congratulations to all. All right, that's it for Take Two this week. Our show was directed by Lori Skywalker Galaretta. Our producers, Austin Cross, Leo Duran, and Jonathan Shiflett. Tony helped edit this week. Marina Pena is our news apprentice. Hazmik Bogosian and Eduardo Perez are our engineers. And our senior producer is Megan Larson. You can always find us on Twitter. We're at Take Two. That's at Take Two. I'm there as well, at A Martinez LA. Thanks for listening. Thanks for trusting us with your time. Take Two is Monday at 2. Talk to you then.
89.3 KPCC, LA's #1 NPR station.
KPCC supporters Solar.com, helping people go solar even when sheltering in place by comparing quotes online from vetted solar companies. A solar and energy storage system can also blackouts this summer. Learn more at Solar.com.
This is 89.3 KPCC Pasadena, Los Angeles, a community service of Pasadena City. Remote learning without prerequisites. Dream come do.